Hello golfers, this is Greg with Cause and Effect Golf. We're going to talk about the stance today. It's hard to talk about the stance and not talk about ball position, but you just try to put the ball position a little aside and understand what we talk about, because oftentimes I find too many people, this is a pretty basic thing that you need to kind of get in place. And then you can play with your ball position a little more, because sometimes when you're playing with ball position, that's a little bit what kind of shot you're trying to hit, how far you're trying to hit, etc. So, okay, so let's take it from just the simple terms as to the driver and a sandwich. I got a 54 here, the sandwich basically. So this is our extremes, right? So this is, just looking at a big club, like a club with this length, you'd say, okay, I got to have a little more of a big stance to make this, right? So we're going to have the widest stance with our driver, okay? And got a sandwich, well, obviously that's going to be your smallest stance, right? So we got to find somewhere in between how we're going to stand and everything. So let's look at it this way. Let's go to the big club, like we said, the driver. So I got this out here. Let's put that driver out there. The ball position, it can kind of vary a little. Some people go all the way up here, some people get it back here. Let's just say this right here. Let's just work with the off the left heel, ball out there. And so where we're putting our feet in that sense in relationship to our body, you want to feel like they're a little on the outskirts of your shoulders, out over in here. That would be appropriate for a driver, okay? You can see how in that position there, I'm in a position here, I feel like I'm going to really hit this. Let's put this down for a minute. I'm going to take this here and I'm going to really hit it. You can see the width of that stance, right? The reason why you need a width of that stance, because there's a little bit of getting into the side, and I'm a big fan of getting into your right side. It doesn't mean you want to sway or anything like that. I don't know if I'm that much into the guys that are getting like this and dropping it back and get in down like there. I'm over 50, over 60. Now, it's tough to do that. Younger, I can see. The younger guy may get over here like this and hang on there. But I want you to get here, think about more of an athletic stance, give kind of the width, and then you have our ball out here. Again, we're not going to talk about ball position so much, but I want you to understand this. I don't want you to get over here. I wouldn't be an advocate of this. And I'm also not an advocate of having you back in here, because that creates some jams. You get kind of flipping and so forth. So, but it's kind of make it pretty natural. And from the standpoint of the stance, just as a little side, when you're putting your hands on the club in the stance and you're taking a dress position and you put your hand, it goes down further than your left hand, right? Because you're down here, your trail hand's further down. Does that not automatically tilt you? So that's why I say, like, you don't have to go overboard, because you're already tilting yourself anyway. There's different things you can do with different shots, but just kind of keep the basics right here, right now, okay? So we have this position right here. That's a pretty good position. I'd feel pretty aggressive, and I'm going to hit that, right? Okay, so then where am I going to go when I have like a hybrid, or a 5-wood, 7-wood, or a 5 hybrid, or your 4 or 5 iron? You're going to try to play that in your front part. You're going to be off your belt loop, and so we're going to narrow it down here more into a position like this. You're almost like a little on the very edge of your shoulders, but you've narrowed down from this, and now you're into here, okay? This is going to be basically your long irons, something like your hybrid, and a little more. Now, you could even take this take it into your middle irons, but I'd say somebody may still be a little more like this, because now when you're going to pull the 7 iron in there, the 7 iron is going to be, we want to get those in. I'm going to put this away. Because that 7 iron, we're going to get something to the middle of the stance, and we're going to be at shoulder width. You're going to be a little bit, almost like you're hitting the 5 iron or something like that, but you could be a little more narrow with that right there, okay? Something like that there. And I like doing that. I feel too that you'll get good rotation, you can do everything, but you don't get crazy. And I say this would be crazy. If you're out here trying to hit a 7 iron like that, there's many things that can go wrong when you do that. So you can see where I am right here. There I'm more in the 7 iron. I'm getting myself pretty ready. And if you've not had your stance like this, if you had a really wide stance, this will feel really weird, but it would be a good feeling, because you're probably not getting the proper rotation and the proper clearing your left side when you get too wide. That's what I find. When people get wide, you can't get through it. You kind of get there, and then you throw your hands much more, and you get a little erratic, okay? So we went from width, really big, to almost big, and now we're shoulder width, and we're like this. This stance here, what I'm in right here, basically your 6-iron on up to your 9-iron or even your wedge, this is going to be shoulder width, okay? And so play with that. That's a really good stance to be in there. You can still be very athletic, because athletic is more, you know, getting yourself in this position. It's just we don't want to be too wide on that, okay? So now here's where it gets a little kind of tough for people. Okay, so you're going from this 7-iron here, you're in the width kind of thing like this here. Doesn't matter if you're doing different things with your stance, we just want the width something like this here. Okay, so we're gonna go there. So I call that, we had the wide, not so mini wide, and then we go in shoulder width. So now this, I'm gonna call this your feel stance. When you get into your feel stance, this would work with your pitching wedge, gap wedge, sand wedge, 60s, and all that stuff. So all your wedges, your feel clubs, right? So you're doing that, okay? You're gonna get into that position. And so now here, I could take that, still, you're gonna be narrow here. You can see what I've just done, even if I'm hitting it pretty hard. Now, if I'm gonna hit a really hard sand wedge, I could get wider and do that kind of thing. And younger kids can do that. Younger guys can do that if they can control that, but I can also find sometimes there's a reason why you have a 54 and a 56 and all the different the lofts and so forth. You don't have to kill the ball, okay? Younger kids, I know you can hit it, and that's really great. And you see it, you hit your pitching wedge, 170 yards. Okay, that's good. But realistically, we're talking about some accuracy when we get in these clubs. So don't kill it. You don't have to. You can still hit it really far. You'd be surprised how far you can hit it when you start understanding what your stance can provide and so forth. So here I am in this position here. You notice I was never really behind, the ball was always in the middle part of my stance when I was a 7. And I would never get back in here, okay? Unless, again, if you're hitting some kind of shot, knockdown or whatever, that's different, okay? If you're hitting a stock shot, you're not gonna have your 7-iron back here like this. Well, you can take your pitching wedge, or we'll call this our gap wedge or something like that. You're still gonna basically keep it in the middle of your stance. You can play a little with it coming back, but realistically, when you start hitting this stance in these shorter clubs, you're going to have more of a little bit of a forward press, a little bit of a shaft lean there. So you don't go overboard with this, right? But what you do want to do, you want to use your feet. You want to understand the width of your stance now. When you get much smaller, you can see the difference. I mean, just look at what I'm doing here. If I'm going to hit a 70-yard, an 80-yard sand wedge, you probably see me something like that, right? If you see me hitting a 30-yard, you probably see me like that. If I'm going to hit a 90, you may see me, or a 90 or 100, you may see me something like that. But you can see how my stance plays with that, okay? And so when you do this, and you're up in this position, does it not almost promote you to restrict it certainly restricts your shoulder turn, right? When you're sitting here with this stance right here, you can only turn it so much, right? When you're hitting a driver, you can see how I've gotten into my right side. You can see how much of a turn I get into. When I'm shorter, when I'm smaller here, at this stance right here, let's say again, like it's like an 80-yard stance right here, you can see how I'm not going to have too much shoulder turn, and that's good. If you get too much shoulder turn or too much rotation, you lose control. The club gets all over the place. So what I want you to understand is that there are distances. There's the wide for the driver, then there's the medium width or the medium wide. It's like more for your longer irons, your middle iron, your 5-iron, your hybrids, and so forth. Then when you get really into the meat of the irons, basically a 6 through 9 or 6 through 8, you're going to have that shoulder width. And then when you get down to the field distances, the field clubs, then you're going to be somewhere here at shoulder width, and then you'll be narrowing up, and then you'll also find that your stance becomes wider or open. See, so I'm going to stand right here, so I'm in this position right here, getting up to hit that shot. You can see how I've got my left foot opened up. That has a lot to do with how far I got to hit the ball. I'll do it this way. You can see what I'm doing here. You can see if I'm hitting that that 100-yard wedge, you may see me something like this. If you see me hitting that 40-yard wedge, you can see I've opened up in here like this. So understand how much the stance does play a part in the different distances you're hitting. And don't try to kill the ball, because when you get a wide stance, you start over swinging, okay? So look at your distance, kind of interpret the distance, what you have, and then see how your body feels with how much of a turn you're gonna feel comfortable with, right? A longer club, you gotta make a bigger turn. There's no question. Shorter club, you don't have to make that big of a turn. You wanna have much more control over that. So, all right, good luck. See you in the fairway. And if you have any comments, please just give us a like or whatever, and look forward to seeing you on the golf course.